include grant writing, coordination of research for several federally funded programs, supervising of clinical internship programs, staff training and evaluation, and the dissemination of research. David holds an adjunct faculty position at the University of Illinois College of Medicine at Peoria. He received his PhD in ecological community psychology from Michigan State in 2002, completed a master's degree in psych from the State University of New York in 1992, and some of his research interests also include supportive employment. And I know David's been involved in the field for years, and so thank you, David, and I'm going to turn it over. I think, Bridget, are you going to discuss sort of some of the housekeeping things before we turn it over to David?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
This is Bridget Murphy from JBS, and I just wanted to let everybody know that I'm filling in today for Kathy Crowley, who's out this week, but she'll be back next week. And just some quick announcements. During the webinar portion, all of the phones are going to be muted. And I want to let you know that the session will be recorded so that it can be posted on the Ideas Exchange. As well as if you have any questions for David, please send them via the chat function, and we will pass them on to him, and he may be able to address the questions right away, or we'll wait until the formal Q&A session at the very end. And then we did want to make an announcement that the next webinar is August 22nd, and that is about participant protections in a mobile world, and that's going to be by David Smith, who is a phenomenal speaker, and he's the executive director of the Mobile Health for Youth and Families Institute. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the ball over to David so he can share his information about the great work he's doing.
Thank you to both of you for the introduction. Kind words. I don't know if I can live up to the idea of sharing wisdom, but I'll at least try to the best I can. Bridget, I can move the slides now, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great. This is a small group, and so I think there'll be more time. I'm probably going to be able to get through it on time, but I also want to invite people to either send a message through the text that Bridget told you about, or hold on to your questions, and then we can do a Q&A at the end of this session, because I think we'd have time to discuss some of the ideas. I'm going to talk about a CSAC grant project, and before I go any further, I want to mention that we're actually partnering with one of the ROSC grantees involved in the project right now, in the ROSC grant, at Sinisippi Incorporated. Sinisippi has been a ROSC grantee now going into their second year, I believe now. They're the final cohort of the grant. And they have been working with us, or I should say we have been working together for several years on different projects. First, the ROSC project, and now the current CSAC grant project that I'm going to tell you about. The target for the grant project I'm going to discuss were clients with a substance use disorder who live in rural areas. And Sinisippi covers a substantial rural region of the northwest region of Illinois, to give you an idea of where we're working. So I'll go through this stuff, and again, please feel free to ask me questions during this. You can find the grant project that I'm going to discuss at the address noted here, mobilewellnessandrecovery.com. It was easier to rent an internet page to set up our research, and I do recommend that for folks that ever want to add some of the things I'm going to talk about. We're paying about $5 a month to park this website on basically an internet site where you can rent it for months or years at a time, and we pay very little for it. And the bandwidth is perfect for our project. You can also check us out at our Facebook address, Human Service Center in Peoria. You have to put in Peoria because there is another Human Service Center on there that no one has maintained. And then feel free to email me or give me a call if you have questions. I can send you more materials. So a brief review. Many of you may have heard my talks in the past, and this is something you're all very much aware of. It is really difficult to engage people in treatment who have a substance use disorder. Sadly to say, this stat has been consistent for years. We're serving about 11% of people in this country who have a substance use disorder, and that statistic has remained so for about 20 years. SAMHSA actually produces this for us. And it's been a struggle to get people in for various reasons. Individuals who have a serious substance use disorder, only 25% ever access addiction treatment in their lifetime. Some of the problems for people in rural areas, they just have no options. There is no outpatient services for them, and they have to travel long distances for very limited residential treatment slots. Individuals are also not willing or necessarily ready to completely eliminate alcohol and drugs. Now, they are willing to lower their alcohol and drug use, but it's also hard to find treatment providers who are willing to do that. And then, of course, the other problem is that our current treatment system is really focused on acute, intensive, disconnected episodes of care. And the research is clearly consistent in that episodic care is nowhere near as effective as an ongoing continuous care model. Unfortunately, we just don't have that in our system right now. This is just another list of barriers of why people don't enter treatment. Many people, most of them who don't think they have a problem. There's costs. I've already talked about the barriers, the perception that they can control their SUD. Many people are just unaware of how to access treatment. So because most people don't enter treatment, what if we develop a treatment system that can meet them? Some of this research has been going on for many years. For instance, primary care providers are now integrating addiction treatment services. That's actually a great way of reaching people who will never come to us. But what if we could provide services in another realm? That service would be the individual's home. A virtual addiction treatment program that would be provided to them either through the internet on their computer, through a smartphone, or through a telephone. We're all familiar with the telephone, but in fact it is a technology where you can deliver addiction treatment services, not just call people to remind them to come into treatment. So our CSAC grant project was about creating an addiction treatment program that people in the most rural areas of the country could access, or at least for our state, rural areas in Illinois, could access effective addiction treatment services. So the treatment is their home. Another thing I've showed many of you in past presentations, if you look to the left-hand side of this slide, you'll notice that this is the stage of change framework that all of you are probably very familiar with. People come to treatment in all different stages of readiness. The problem isn't that. The problem is most of our treatment focuses on one stage, action. If you're in action, great. Treatment will probably be effective, or at least you have a good chance of benefiting from treatment. However, if you're not in action stage, the addiction treatment that we offer is often ineffective. The client leaves or becomes quite frustrated and eventually cycles through multiple ineffective treatments because they're not ready or they do not have the capacity to completely eliminate alcohol and drugs at the time. To the right are very effective, well-established techniques that most of the grantees on this call could be providing individuals to move them through the stages of change. If you notice a lot of things I listed in here, they're low-cost or free computer, internet, or phone-based activities that you could be doing now. Pre-contemplation, you could be providing people with education and materials. You could put them on your web page. You can email that to them. The audit and the assist are two highly effective and free screens that are also online. You can hand them out to an individual, and they can even go online and complete them in complete privacy to find out whether they even have an alcohol or drug issue. And most people actually appreciate filling these surveys out, and they tend not to argue with a computer about the score either. Now, when you move down, there are many things you can do on contemplation. There are harm reduction websites now where people can actually get ideas of how to lower their drinking and drug use if they're not ready to enter treatment. People in the determination, or what they call the preparation stage, can receive lots of different services that can be delivered over the phone. People can enter mutual groups now on the web, AA and NA and so on. I'm not going to spend too much more time because I want to tell you how we're doing it in our project. The first thing I recommend, something that probably every grantee can do here, is simply enhance your website to make it more consumer friendly. A lot of things that I point out here are things that you can do or your MIS staff can do now. For instance, provide all your treatment options in summaries on your website right now so people have an idea of what they're shopping for. Knowledge itself is power. Also provide a ton of self-guided materials. A lot of people aren't ready for treatment, but if they call you and you give them something like a self-guided material, they'll find the phone call helpful. That means that they may call you later when they feel that they do need your help. Also, we're now using Google Voice and Gmail to communicate with individuals. I'm not going to talk about it in this particular session, but you can use various online social media formats to text people, and it's free to the agency. It's not free to the consumer unless they have a texting plan. Anyways, this is where I would recommend you get started, and for the most part, it's all free. So the Mobile Wellness and Recovery Program is our CSAC grant project where we try to develop and provide evidence-based addiction treatment services to people in their home through the internet or through the phone. As I said, we're working with Sinisippi, and here it's SCI, Sinisippi Centers Incorporated. They're our primary agency where we're recruiting people for our project. But people never actually have to come to our agency to receive the program. In fact, most people we never actually see in person. We never meet them face-to-face when they enroll in our project, and yet they can stay in our project up to 12 months. So the idea is to engage people at any stage of readiness. It doesn't matter whether they are ready to give up alcohol and drugs or want to give up one drug but not another. Everyone can be enrolled in the program with the hope that we can get them to continue to lower or eliminate alcohol and drugs. The basic model is this. For most people, we hope they have internet access. If they do, we start them with an online interactive cognitive behavioral therapy program. The program was developed by Lisa Marsh and other colleagues. Lisa is now at Dartmouth and loves to talk about her program and loves to give demonstrations of her program. So at the end of this call, I'll give out her contact information if you guys want to contact her. The downside of that program, clinically, I think it's highly effective, but it isn't free. So we can talk about how, as a company, you could maybe purchase that program. We use the grant, obviously, to do it. So people enroll in the online program, and they can basically do the same types of CBT programs that many of you provide in your agencies, only they can do it at their own pace, and they can do it interactively. That is, this program actually provides an extensive amount of feedback, video training, surveys, and so on. After they finish the core CBT online, we then enroll them in a phone-based continuing care program. The program was developed by Jim McKay, and colleagues at the University of Pennsylvania. What we do is we ask people to stay involved with us for about 20 minutes a week or a shorter period of time over 3 to 6 months. The idea is we keep them engaged in a long-term yet low-intensive model where they're more likely to learn how to live with alcohol and drugs. The longer we keep them engaged on the phone, the more likely they are to learn and sustain abstinence over time. Finally, we actually give people who have a smartphone or an iPhone, a Droid or an iPhone, or even actually, never mind, it's not a BlackBerry, it's a Droid and an iPhone. If they have it, we give everyone basically a highly sophisticated interactive phone application that was developed by the University of Wisconsin. I'm going to talk about what that phone application does, but basically it's your own recovery support system that you put on your phone and you keep it for the life of the phone. In addition to that, many of you are very familiar with this, but CSAT has really increased its emphasis on getting people access to health care. This is a big issue for many reasons, and clients who have developed an alcohol and drug problem are also developing serious health issues that are going along with it. This is something you're very much aware of, and what we did is we wanted to make sure that people would have access to health care even though they're getting their addiction treatment now on the web. They're not really walking in. So we have a nurse who's actually working at Mississippi who provides guidance, care, medical treatment planning, and case management, mostly phone-based case management, to get people access to health care while they're receiving our addiction treatment services. So the nurse can assist people, again, on the phone or through the Internet. And if they live in the catchment area of Mississippi, they can actually come in and see the nurse as well. But we also integrate health care into everything we do. All right, now I'm going to talk to you about our grant project, but I'm also going to give you some other websites where you can start enrolling people now, and these are free websites. All the services that we're talking about in our grant project are not free, but I'll give you the cost of all those services if you're interested. But I also want to mention that there are other websites out there that I've presented in other webinars and workshops as well. The goal of any of these projects, though, is to get someone activated immediately. You don't want to put someone through some laborious process or waiting list to get involved. The faster someone gets involved in any type of skills training to lower their alcohol and drug use, the more likely it will be beneficial. The longer they wait, the less likely it's going to be beneficial. So we try to get people enrolled and involved in the CBT or phone-based program within 24 hours. And this is something you can do through other web-based programs as well. And again, if they're not ready to seek professional treatment, these are really good ways of foot-in-the-door techniques of getting them started. One I recommend that you guys check out is NIAAA has a really nice website for people that want to go through a self-guided program. It's called Rethinking Drinking, and you can also pull down PDFs. It's a really nice place to get started for someone who wants to just lower their drinking. They're not sure they want to abstain, but they probably are willing to figure out if they can control their drinking at this time. Now, most people can't control their drinking if they already have dependency, but that's not the point. The point is to work with them where they're at and eventually get them to lowering their drinking or to stop it. Another one I recommend is a researcher who works with Bill Miller and colleagues at the University of New Mexico developed the Drinker's Checkup. It's a fantastic interactive website based on motivational interviewing and cognitive behavioral therapy. It's completely free and confidential. Anyone can enter that program, and in fact, I recommend callers check it out. It's a great little program, and the research was highly effective. It's another free program. Another one related to that is moderate drinking. Obviously, you can tell by the title, it's a harm reduction website sponsored by NIAAA and the University of New Mexico. All right, now on to the project that we're doing. The CBT program that we're using is called the Therapeutic Education System, or TESS. The program is based on cognitive behavioral therapy and the community reinforcement approach. Both are basically behavioral programs that are skills training. People go on here simply to learn how to avoid alcohol and drugs if they want to avoid them. So it's strictly skills training, just like a CBT or CRA program. The test program has 65 skills training modules. We only ask our clients to go through about 15 of them, but they're welcome to go through all 65 if they want to. It provides a variety of things that I'm not going to go over right now, but it covers everything. The kitchen sink is definitely involved in this program. They got it all in there. And people do it at their own pace, but each module, someone could probably get through it in about 20 to 30 minutes, and at the end of it, there's a quiz. The quiz basically identifies if they understood what the module was about. We know about the quiz, and we see how they're doing and how fast they're working through the modules as well. The modules, as I said, are CBT, so people learn the skills that we would teach them in an outpatient program. So one of the popular modules is problem solving, teaching people how to think. So we don't tell people that they need to stop drinking and drugging and go to AA. We basically teach them how to think about options, think about situations. So problem solving is a huge training module in there. All the training modules have audio, so people don't even have to be able to read and write to hear the modules, and most of them have video vignettes of actors demonstrating the skills. The actors demonstrate how to do it badly, and then they demonstrate how to do it effectively. So it's role-playing on a video. Lots of other modules that are in there that I'll give an example. One is anger management module. Another one is wellness. There's lots of wellness and nutritional modules in there. They're not the primary ones we use, but they're basically to help people understand that recovery is a holistic process. There are modules on there that also cover things like HIV, and there are modules developed for teenagers as well. Again, a lot of other wellness modules on there like sleep hygiene and things like that. After they go through the CBT module, and by the way, if they don't have access to the internet, we basically give them the modules in paper format and we mail it to them. So they can get the CBT over the phone, and then the counselor basically talks to them and walks them through it. However, most people somehow, some way, have access to the internet. After they get the CBT program or during it, we also get them on a weekly call with our counselor, a real clinician, not a virtual clinician, and that individual works with them for about 20 minutes a week for a couple of months, and then he moves it to 2 to 3 to 4 weeks for a few more months. So this person can stay involved, again, up to 12 months with very low involvement, which is important. One thing I want to stress is that 40 years of research has found that keeping duration of treatment is the most important thing, but intensity is not. In fact, there's virtually no research supporting intensive long-term residential, but there is extensive research that short-term residential followed by step-down outpatient or phone-based continuing care is highly effective. So remember, a takeaway message, duration is important, intensity is not. So a weekly phone call that someone keeps for a year will be highly effective. Our phone calls are based on two sets of researchers. One, I said, is Jim McKay, and the other is researchers that are close to us in Bloomington, Illinois, Mike Dennis and colleagues, who developed the Recovery Management Checkup. Many of the ROSC grantees use the Recovery Management Checkup protocol. Highly effective, and we use sort of a hybrid of both McKay's phone protocol and Dennis's protocol. So as I said, one of the researchers we use is Christy Scott and Mike Dennis's Recovery Management Checkup. Only we don't do it every 90 days. We do it weekly and then move it to 2 to 3 to 4 weeks after that. And the other one is McKay. McKay's research has shown that more intensive protocol of weekly has profound impact on recovery rates over time. much more significant than the recovery management checkup because, again, they work with them weekly instead of every 3 months. The other beauty of the phone protocol is that people can attend the sessions. There are very few barriers to phone treatment. And so these are just scenarios. This isn't a real client, but this is basically what could be occurring when someone is calling us. For instance, women are more likely to engage in a program like this if they have children at home. They don't want to, or they just can't go to even an outpatient program because of child care. Well, a phone-based protocol eliminates that one barrier. So again, women is a target for us because they will be likely to interact in this format. And the barriers of transportation, cost, location, and child care are at least reduced, if not eliminated, through this phone-based protocol. The other nice thing about it is we actually have professionals involved in our program who really like the confidentiality. With an internet and phone base, you're never seen even in an outpatient clinic. One thing that many of you know in the rural areas is that everyone knows everybody. And if you walk into an outpatient program and it's called addiction treatment, a lot of people know what you're doing. Well, the phone and computer-based protocols are highly confidential. For instance, we have a lawyer and a doctor who are both extremely thrilled with the process that they never actually had to enter an outpatient program in their communities where they would have been recognized. And of course, we can tailor the phone protocols to people who are working. So you don't have to worry about coming to an outpatient. You could actually call us during your lunch break if that's what you wanted to do. Or you can call us after work. Finally, one thing that we were doing long before the CSAT project is we were a site that tested a smartphone protocol developed by Dave Gustafson and colleagues at the University of Wisconsin. Dave Gustafson is an engineer who figured out that if people want access to treatment and they need immediate access to treatment, then they can't really do it through an office-based program because that cannot provide immediate access. So he figured out that one thing that might work is put a program on a phone that people could literally use push-button technology to get information, to get feedback. So he developed a smartphone application. We give this to clients very soon into the program. As long as they get a few of the CBT modules in them, they could have access to this if they have a smartphone. I will say that most of our clients don't have smartphones, but if they do, the program is free for them. As I said, Dave Gustafson developed the smartphone application, and it is the same type of app that most people on this call who have a smartphone are familiar with. Most of the apps you have, you download for free, or you pay $1 or a couple of bucks for. It's the same technology. You download an app onto your phone. The difference is this is a highly interactive program that also connects with other supports that your common application doesn't. So I'll explain to you what those are. This is a picture of what the app looks like on your phone. It is an app, so it's just a page on your phone. Your phone doesn't get covered with this, but if you go to the page of this app, this is what it looks like. There are many buttons here that you would push. It's push-button technology like any other smartphone. And as you see, there are different things on here that you can connect to immediately. There's the support team. That was done through the research. The support team now would be access to our counselors. However, discussions is a chat room. It's an online chat room that only people that are involved in the study can actually gain access to. Now, this was done in the prior research. We have not set that up yet in our CSAC grant. But in the prior research, people could push that button and post questions in a chat room. Questions like, hey, I'm free Saturday night. Is there any non-drinking activities going on in the town? Or the AA meeting on South Street closed. What's the next closest one? Or do you have one you would recommend? So it's simply a social realm where people can ask other people in the area what's going on. and it's done through the chat rooms, just like you would text people or through your Facebook. Meetings are AA and NA meetings. If you push that, it connects to your GPS and it informs you of where the closest meeting is. That technology works in any city. So even though you might be a client in Peoria, if you're up in Chicago for the weekend and you want to find an AA meeting, you just push that button and the GPS locates you and then tells you where the closest meeting is. This technology, by the way, can also be pulled down for free through AA and NA have apps, and we have one posted on our website. So if you want to tell clients about that, they can pull that down without this entire application. Events is a social calendar. Ask an expert, that's posting a question to one of our counselors. And then I'm going to explain the rest of these buttons as we go along. So with the smartphone, people basically can carry this 24 hours a day because it is their phone and it's an application on their phone. With GPS, as I already said, people can locate an AA-NA meeting anywhere in the country. That's a program that's already been set up. It wasn't developed by Dave Gustafson. It was developed by programmers involved with AA and NA. They just borrowed that technology onto the phone. The other thing, too, is the phone has various CBT programs weaved into the program, like problem solving. I had mentioned that before. Let's say you're in a high-risk situation and you're panicking. Well, you press a couple buttons on your phone, and it gives you tips on how to problem solve through the situation. Often, that's enough to get out of it without drinking and drugging. The problem is most people don't have quick access to simple tips to get them out of trouble. And so they drink and drug, and then they tell you maybe 3 days later when they come into treatment that they had a slip. The phone hopefully can be used to give them quicker access to information to avoid the slip. Finally, one of the cooler things, and believe it or not, the clients do not have a problem with this technology. The phone has GPS, and by the way, all smartphones and iPhones have a GPS in it. You have GPS in your program right now, and if you want to use Google to find a location, it's done through GPS. What Dave Gustafson and colleagues did is they connected the GPS to a program where you type in all your high-risk situations. So let's say you were a drinker and your favorite place was a tavern on Main Street. But what happens is you type that in when you get the application, but you forget about it. The application then goes off. Basically, it gives a warning to you, and it can send a text message to, say, a sponsor, to a loved one, to even your counselor, that you have now entered or getting close to a high-risk situation. It's automatic because it's connected to your GPS. You can program your phone to do various things with your GPS. This happens to be a program for high-risk situations. And although it sounds a little Orwellian and sort of like a 1984 novel, in fact, the consumer programs the high-risk situations. The phone doesn't figure out what your high risk are. You program in that you want these warnings. So the consumer has control over this, and people really like it. They may ignore the warning. They may continue to walk into the tavern, but often that warning gives them an idea that they are really in a high-risk situation. And you might think that people know they're in a high-risk situation, but we know from the research they don't. Addiction is so automated that often you'll walk right into a bar without even being aware that you're walking into the bar. The phone disrupts that automation. Finally, the phone has a panic button on it. If you notice the slide a few slides ago, the picture of a panic button. The beauty of it is all you have to do is press that button. When you press that button, a text message goes to someone you programmed into your phone to contact you. It could be a sponsor, it could be a counselor, again, it could be your significant other, it could be several people. The text message is sent immediately without you having to do anything else. So you just press the button and the message goes out. The reason it works is, one, it takes very little effort to ask for help. Many of your clients have said they would have asked for help, but it was hard for them to pick up the phone, dial it, and then ask for help. It's just a difficult thing to do, even though it sounds simple. Well, what they did is they made it simple by pushing the button. And then the counselor or the sponsor then gets the text message. It's basically a standard message of, panic, I'm in trouble. It doesn't tell them why they're in trouble. It just says, alert, please call me back. And that's what they do if they're reading their phone and they get the text message immediately. All right, I think actually that's the bulk of it. I actually ran through it fairly quickly so we could stay on time and provide a little time for Q&A. I went through a lot of this. There's many more websites that I could even offer you that you could go to now that are free, but I wanted to show you the power of or the potential of what we're doing. So with that, let me put it back to Bridget and the CSAT and JBS team to see if we want to open it up now to Q&A.
I think that's a great idea. We're going to go ahead and unmute people's phones. So if you have a question for David, just identify who you are and where you come from and then ask your question. Please, if you're not asking a question, if you could use your own muting technology so that we avoid any kind of background information noise. So with that, the phone lines are about to be open. So, can you make sure you mute your phones? Thank you. So do we have any questions for David?
It sounds like someone was trying. Can you hear it?
Yep.
By the way, if folks either are having technical difficulty or just want to think about it, they can also send me an email. I don't recall, did I post my email at the beginning of this slide? Particularly if people want access to the researchers who developed the CBT program or the HS program.
Somebody is calling in, but I can't figure out. Oh, Damien Cabeza. Okay.
Looks like somebody's trying to.
If somebody's trying to call in, maybe you can tell them to do it also through the chat.
Yeah. Yes, you can send a question. If you're having difficulty, feel free to send a question via the chat, and then we can ask the question for you. And if not, I know David.
Like
go ahead.
Yeah.
I know, David, I've been a big fan of your work over the years, and one of the things that I've always wanted to ask you, but I haven't had the opportunity until now, thank goodness, is that how do you deal with any lost phones or access to different technology? I know you said you printed out some of the materials for those that don't have phones, but just alternatives, or how do you kind of handle potential technology barriers?
One thing, Bridget, the University of Wisconsin did a 2-year randomized clinical trial of their smartphone technology, and we were one of the 2 sites. We were the bigger site for it. We thought that a lot of the phones would get lost, or lost is a vague term for stolen or sold or what have you. Surprisingly, hardly anyone ever lost that, and we're talking about, I think, 200 individuals who received the smartphone, and 200 were randomized to no support after treatment, and yet I can only recall a couple cases where the phone was lost. A few, they were dropped and broke, and we replaced it. But in the research, the smartphone, and all the internet access was science. And yet they didn't lose phones at all for the study. So people really valued it. So there's something about the smartphone, and I couldn't really tell you all the reasons why, but it was valued, and it was a tool that people used. Now, whether it led to improved recovery rates, I don't know. It's going to take probably a few more months before they publish the research. on substance use outcomes. But I can tell you there wasn't a lot of problems with that particular technology. For our study, though, we have not enrolled a person yet who has a smartphone in rural areas. So I can tell you that in our study, because we don't give them the phone, we just give them the application, a lot of people in our client population, which is poor and rural, do not have smartphones. So that's probably one of the biggest barriers to using smartphone applications. Our website, by the way, has lots of free and cheap smartphone applications, not the one that I talked about in the research. That's not free, and it's not cheap either. The Internet doesn't seem to be a problem for folks. Just a quick summary of the CBT program. If they have access to the Internet, that has not been a problem at all.
That's terrific. We did get another question that came in, and it says, is there a list of the recovery websites mentioned?
Yeah, I can actually send out, some of my prior presentations has an extensive list of both support groups that are online now and some of these websites where people can do harm reduction or abstinence-based CBT treatment. I can send out. So if people want to give me an email, or Bridget, if you want, I'll email it all to you, and you can distribute it.
That sounds great. We can certainly do that.
It's like almost like being in a triangulation with a family.
Are there any other questions? You can feel free to either ask them, or if you'd like, you can send us a message and we can ask them for you.
Told me that she's taught to everyone under the sun, especially including Annie. It's kind of like.
There seems to be some audio problem.
Yeah, we're trying to mute some lines that are a little noisier than others. So in terms of implementing these types of technologies within substance abuse treatment, has there been any challenges with educating clinicians or administrators in using these technologies?
Yeah, clinicians and administrators have sort of a uncomfortable feeling when I present on these technologies. The first thing they think about is HIPAA and what's the federal law, CR 42.
Right.
And
CFR.
we use all the same secure functions. The smartphone technology, which isn't really secure, however, it's actually their program. And so I can tell you it's basically just a set of applications that they can use however they choose. So it's not really a true interaction with a clinician. But if they want to type in the clinician as one of the people that would receive the message, that's great, but they actually choose to do that. The CBT program itself is a secured website. It's not a computer program that we download. It's a program that we give people access to. It's a web-based program, and it's housed by Lisa Marsh on a website that she has developed. So they go through that, and it can handle a lot of people, so we've never overloaded that website. So the security issue is not much of a problem. The challenge for clinicians is the concern. Most clinicians will tell you they'd rather work face-to-face with a client because they feel like they know what's going on with the client. We actually overhauled our entire front door to do more phone-based assessments. And a lot of the assessors balked at that, saying, well, I learn more by looking at the client. However, we found that in the research, in fact, most people take on more responsibility for their recovery on the phone because they don't rely on the clinician. So there's actually a benefit to phone-based or computer-based programs that we never really thought about before, is that people take on more ownership. In our outpatient centers, a lot of our clients still think it's the counselor them to recover. And so I'd say there's actually a benefit to the program that clinicians eventually see and get more comfortable with. Now, engagement, though, keeping people on the calls is as difficult as it is for outpatient because it's also easy not to answer the phone when we call them. So if you don't want to do the call this week, you just don't pick up the phone. So it's a hell of a lot easier to say, no, I don't want to do it. So the engagement, we struggle with the engagement just like outpatient and residential programs do. Our engagement rate is no better than the other programs. And we struggle with getting people to accept that. A lot of people still want residential or outpatient, even though the evidence suggests that mobile wellness would be useful. So that's one of the barriers, is a lot of clients who would benefit from always want outpatient or residential.
Thank you so much. I think that's definitely been a challenge in the work that we did in Arizona as well. But certainly there are an enormous amount of benefits with using these types of technologies. Is there any other questions that we might have?
Mm-hmm.
I think that may be it. I do want to remind folks that this was recorded and it will be listed on the Ideas Exchange as well as David's PowerPoint. I'm going to turn it over to Linda. I'm not sure if you have a couple extra words that you want to.
Yes, I do. First, David, I want to thank you because I thought this was great, and I think it was a lot of practical information that programs can use. And I think it can. I mean, it really fits in with our whole ROSC model. So, you know, I'm very pleased with all the information. And I hope that people do really access all of the things, all of the some of the suggestions and all of the websites that you suggested, because I do think it really will help people maintain or get into recovery. So I want to thank you. And, you know, I'm glad I thought you did a great job, so I'm really glad that we'll now have this as part of our library that people can access. So thank you again, and thanks to everybody on the phone, and have a great day. I don't know if there's anything else anybody wanted to add.
No, but again, I remind people, please feel free to email me if they want the information. And Linda,
Great.
As always, it's a pleasure working with you and your team. So
Great,
I look forward to the program in the future, and hopefully we'll have research the next time we do that. I mean, data.
Right. That would be great. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Take care, guys.
You too.
Everyone.
Take care. Thanks, everybody.
Have a nice.
Bye.
See you next month.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yes, come on in. When